What is a dark secret you are hiding from everyone? I have a secret fantasy life, filled with imaginary friends, which started in grade school and has continued throughout my life. I am now in my 50s and still prefer to be alone in my imaginary world rather than being with my family or friends. However, I am afraid to tell my psychiatrist about this because I am scared that he will lock me up or give me drugs to make it all stop. Last Christmas, I found out that my sister and I have different fathers, and we are technically half-sisters. My sister's biological father tried to start a relationship with my mom, resulting in a pregnancy that ultimately didn't work out. That biological father is now dead, but I didn't probe any further about his identity or how he died in case it was traumatic for my mom to remember. My sister was raised as a single mother at my grandma's house in the 80s, and then my mom met my father, and they got married in the 90s. They moved into a new house, and shortly after that, I was born. My mom told me never to call my sister my half-sister and pretend it didn't matter because she's my sister, and I'm keeping it that way. If anyone asks about the 10-year age gap, I just tell them, it's a long story. I look exactly like my grandpa on my dad's side. Both my parents are almost a foot shorter than me, but I'm almost the same height as him. When my mother got sick when I was a kid, my grandpa went to visit her daily for extended periods of time in the hospital. In his final months, she did the same. After he passed, we found out that he kept a whole other family on the side in secret too. Looking back at my dad's military deployment history, it would also be dicey if she could have gotten pregnant by him around the appropriate time. Based on a collection of various hunches, I'm fairly convinced I'm the product of an affair between my mother and supposed grandfather. This revelation would probably be one of the most lighthearted things about my family. I make up lies about what I do on the weekends. Usually, I don't do much, and I'm very content with that. Others are always asking me what I'm doing, and I never had anything to tell them. I make up lies to get out of phone calls or plans, saying I'm out of town or with friends. I love just being left alone. When I was young, probably around age 9 or 10, I was walking home with my dog from a house around the block when he cut the corner and walked diagonally through the yard of a super mean old lady who lived at the end of my street. She was in her yard at the time tending to these really fancy-looking rose bushes she had growing in beds along the border with her neighbor. My dog was a very friendly golden retriever who didn't even come near her and certainly didn't do anything threatening. But she sprayed him with some kind of insecticide or other chemical she was using on her roses. I ran back home with the dog and hosed him off. He coughed a bunch, but seemed otherwise fine. I didn't tell my parents because somehow I thought I was going to get into trouble for letting the dog walk in her yard. I'm glad I didn't tell them, though, because that night, I decided to sneak downstairs, out the half-bath window, and down the street to her yard, where I cut down every goddamn rose bush I could get my hands on. When I was a teenager, I made a terrible mistake while working at a novelty tourist shop. I stole $100 in ones from the store and didn't tell anyone. Soon after, my coworker, who had a history of trying to get me fired, claimed she got about $100 in tips from her other job. The store management fired her instead of suspecting me. Looking back, I feel guilty and ashamed of what I did. I'm keeping a secret that my late mother shared with me about her past. When she was in high school in the 60s, she had a boyfriend named Jimmy whom she loved deeply. They were planning to get married, but he cheated on her and got another girl pregnant. He broke the news to my mom and said he had to marry the other girl. Devastated and pregnant herself, my mom decided not to tell him about her own pregnancy and later induced a miscarriage. Decades later, my mom reconnected with Jimmy on Facebook, but didn't reveal the truth to him. I feel conflicted about holding this information that could have changed the course of several lives, but I respect my mother's choice not to reveal it. As a teenager, I lived with my grandmother who became very ill. Despite having someone to help her daily, her health continued to decline. One night, as I was watching TV in the living room, I heard my dog whimpering and barking from the bedroom where my grandmother was. I knew what was happening, and that I could potentially save her. However, I didn't want her to continue living in pain, so I made the difficult choice to let her pass away peacefully. Although she lived a long life, I regret not being able to graduate with her present because I was kicked out of school. I still feel guilty about my actions and how foolish I was back then. My brother and I did a 23andMe DNA test and discovered that we have a half-sibling who is older than us. We messaged them, but but there was no reply. The half-sibling was born during our father's military career, which was cut short by a dishonorable discharge that he still keeps hidden from the family. When I was 5 or 6 years old, my parents fought frequently, and one day my mom came into the living room very upset. She woke me up from my nap and asked if I saw the girl my dad brought home. Despite not seeing anyone other than my dad that day, I said yes and told her the girl was in their room. I don't know why I lied, but it led to their divorce. I blamed myself for years until I found out that my little sister is actually my half-sister, which is a story for another time. That I'm a kissless virgin. Male, closing in on 40, never been kissed, never went on a date, hate myself. It's not the lack of sex that makes me hate myself, it's the lack of anyone finding myself worthy of caring about. I've become scared of going out and meeting people. I know people see me as a weirdo, but other than to my shrink, I don't talk about it. Whatever aspect of life, I always feel I'm not good enough. Friends don't remain friends. Jobs are probably above my level. Any love interest I might have could never give a shit about me, and for any hobbies I just don't have the talent. Or that is how I see it after to many years of feeling and being alone. I live in small town where more or less everybody knows everyone body or has some connections to. I have family and friends, some best, some close, some good, and some acquaintances. Lately I feel like everyone's forgotten about me or they just grew tired of me. They don't include me in major or minor gatherings, outings, or events anymore. We used to have a group chat, but ever since me and one person in the group fought, it's just never been the same. I reached out and tried to mend things, but it's just never been the same. I feel lonely and depressed, and seeing everyone happy makes it worse. Majority of the time I am by myself. They sometimes post about their gatherings, and I know that they sometimes hide it from me. I know because I have a private account that we follow each other, but they haven't hid their post from that account IDKY. It just sucks cause I thought they were my friends, so why do they have to hide it from me? I want to disappear. When I have the money or opportunity, I'm contemplating on cutting and leaving everything behind and start from scratch somewhere else where no one knows me. At least there I'll be free.